Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to Lion's Heart. And in this video, I'm going to be speaking about the art of doing nothing. And I feel like this is a super important episode, a super important topic, uh, especially in today's world. I've personally found the practice of doing nothing, simply allowing yourself to be, allowing yourself to rest as you are, without any input or stimulation or need to do anything or act anyway or create anything or get anything done is extremely powerful and extremely valuable and rare in our world today. And the reason for this is that we are very overstimulated. We are constantly, inundated with social media, news, texts, videos, calls, and it's really hard to just get that peace of mind that humans used to naturally have, like that time of reflection, that time of being alone, maybe being on an airplane just with a book. I mean, even airplanes now, like everybody's plugged in, they've downloaded their videos. There's even Wi-Fi on airplanes. Like it's almost impossible to just get that natural quietness and ease that we so used to have. It's just that time of reflection, that time of just being with yourself and being alone and sitting with yourself. And, you know, that is very much a thing of the past and very much a luxury of the past that we don't have, and it needs to be consciously created. It's not something that just falls in your lap these days. You have to actually actively unplug yourself, turn everything off, go into nature, turn off even the headphones and the books and like everything, and just be in silence, and even set a timer to consciously do nothing and be not be obliged to be a person, not be obliged to be an ego who has social roles and responsibilities, but just bask in that state of being instead of that state of doing. And I find that this is such a beautiful medicine and such a beautiful practice to give to yourself. And we just totally have lost touch with it. And so in this video, I'm talking about, reconnecting with that essence, with that joy, that bliss, and that medicine of just doing nothing, like just rest, just let yourself be, like just turning off this constant need to be productive and do stuff and be somebody, and all these ego traps, really. Not that it's bad to be a person and do things, but ultimately, it's not really the true you. And if we get lost in the ego and these social roles and responsibilities, we lose touch with our true nature, which is just that pure beingness, that pure existence and bliss and that emptiness. And that's our true self, and true happiness is in that state. So obviously, our attention spans are much worse than they used to be because of all the technology. And yeah, this art of being with ourselves has just completely been lost. There's a quote by Blaise Pascal that says, all of man's problems stem from his inability to sit with himself alone in silence. And that's very true. So if we look at, like monks, we look at sages, we look at all of these wise people, saints, all of them, who have come with the deepest human wisdom, and the deepest sharings, Christ, Buddha, all these people, pretty much all of them, Ramana Maharshi, actually yes, all of them. I don't know one who didn't have a point in his life, when his or her life, when they were just contemplating in silence and solitude. I mean, Ramana Maharshi spent 15 years in a cave. Christ, we know the story of the desert. Buddha, he went into the mountains and sat under a tree for, I think it was like 30 days by himself. So all of these people have this in common, of this like time where they just were completely stripped from their social identity of having to be a person, and they were just out by themselves in solitude in nature, and they were just contemplating life and doing nothing. They were literally just sitting there. I mean, you could say they were meditating, but it's kind of the same thing. I mean, ultimately meditating is being, it's shutting off the mind and just being in awareness. So that's what they were doing nothing. They were just, allowing the insights to come, allowing the wisdom to come, allowing the mind to digest life, and uncoil its traumas and its thinking and its incessant need to do, its incessant need to be doing something, even if it's like fantasizing and thinking. And ultimately, what this is a purification. You're purifying the mind of all its energy, right? It's got all this pent up, stuck energy that it just wants to go through and digest. You can think of it like as like a stomach filled with pizza, and it just needs to digest that before it can, and move it through the body before it can feel empty and free and clean. And when we don't give ourselves time to reflect on life and digest life in our minds, to digest its energies, we are also, it's like we're going from pizza to pizza to pizza without giving any time for the mind to, really reflect and relax and unwind its own energy. I mean, you can just tell everybody's so pent up. It's because they don't have any time to, or they're not giving themselves any time to just let their mind process life, let themselves digest life. Really, that's what this is coming down to. It's like a digestive system. The mind is like a digestive system which needs to digest life without whipping out the phone or even pulling out a book or making a call or checking social media, which is why I'm stressing the point that this is something we need to consciously do, because back in the old days, they didn't really have that option. I'm sure they distracted themselves in other ways, but it wasn't as easy and as stimulating as it is now, right? Porn, social media, all these things are just like super exciting, super stimulating, and they're right at our fingertips. Whereas back then, maybe they whipped out a book or they went for a walk, but even then, that's still relaxing. So yes, monks, sages, all these wise people, they had this time to themselves. And that brings my next point, that solitude brings out inner wisdom. If you spend time alone doing nothing, it's like you're opening up that inner wisdom that we all have. And doing nothing, just being with yourself, reflecting on life, naturally brings that out. It also gets you closer to your intuition because there's less noise. There's less noise in your mind, so you become closer in tune with yourself, how you're really feeling on a deeper level, not like surface level, shallow emotions like, oh, I don't like this, I'm judging that, but like deeply, like what your soul is feeling, what your soul wants, how your soul feels about certain situations, and it can help you make big life decisions. I mean, just spending 7 days alone in nature, sitting in a cabin in the woods can change your whole life. Even 3 days like that, it can change. It can change your relationship. You can realize you don't want to be with this person, or you can realize you want to be with that person that you had a relationship with, or you're no longer interested in these friends. And I think without this time in solitude, you can't really get clear on big life decisions, career changes, and things like that, because you're just, again, the mind is stuck in its energies and it hasn't purified its energies. So it's just making decisions and choices on that surface level, almost like anxiety, right? And that's a lot of programming. That's where programming lives. That's where like, you should do this, you should be that, you should, lives all in this. And then your deeper soul knows what your soul wants, what your soul is longing for. And when you're in solitude and you're with yourself, that is when you connect with that soul, your genuine, authentic desires and wants. And also allow yourself to digest life. Like I said, you get to digest. It's like a system, the mind is moving through all the things it experienced, all the things that it's been going through and living through, and the mind is just like digesting all of it, and it needs that, because if you don't give it time to digest, it somatizes into the body, and then it ends up being cancer, or if there's some pent up anger or some pent up discomfort with a certain social situation, and you just keep distracting and pushing it down, it just goes into the body and it just becomes like a disease or an ache or a pain. And it's really important that we allow ourselves to process life, really give ourselves that time. Another benefit of doing nothing and sitting alone with yourself is that it brings out a natural bliss. So it brings out, it is a purification. So you're going to be bored as shit in the beginning. It's going to be boring. You're going to be like, this is stupid, this is a waste of time. Maybe anger, maybe unresolved trauma comes up. Like it's not fun all the time. There's a reason people don't do it. They can't sit with themselves because it's you. It's your inner emotions. It's your subconscious mind that needs to be purified. But once you move through that, you sit for an hour or two or three, there will just be this bliss like you've never experienced before in your life if you've never done this or you've never really meditated. And it's just, you just realize like heaven is within, like this is heaven. Like I am generating pure bliss, I'm generating pure love. Like I don't need all these things outside of me to get that. It comes from within. I just need to process life and sit with myself and be with myself. And that's not always easy. It's hard to face that, the mind. It's hard to face the mind. But if we do that, it does bring out this, we process everything, and then what's left is just this peace and bliss. And it's so consistent. It's so effective and consistent. Most people, like, all they need to do is just sit with themselves for 2-3 hours, and they will have this experience. Next is, like I said earlier, it allows us to know ourselves, know what we really want. You sit with yourself long enough, you start to notice patterns in your mind and patterns in your psychology, and you realize what you're really more genuinely, authentically driven to do in life. And again, you move past that conditioning, you move past that, kind of more anxiety level version of yourself, and you really get to know your authentic truth and who you really are. Next, it also helps with psychology. It also helps you understand your own psychology and also the psychology of humans in general. Because you're just sitting with yourself doing nothing, so the only person you're with is yourself. So you're seeing all the ways you think, all your patterns, all your stories, all your trauma. It's just there for you. And as you sit and work these things through, naturally you just start to understand your own psychology and yourself much better. Also, this will heal wounds. So you move through your psychology, unprocessed trauma comes up as you're sitting with yourself doing nothing, and you move through that trauma, you process it, you heal it. So not only are you understanding yourself more, you're actually healing yourself in this time of solitude, which brings you into a spiritual connection as well. So you also, like I said, that natural bliss, you start to look around, and you've been sitting there for 3 hours and you're like, well, what actually is this? Like, I was so lost in chasing sex and food and status and money and all my things I needed to do, and I was so lost in that matrix, and now I'm looking around like, what am I doing here? Like, there's no way this is all an accident. There's no way that there's not some deeper meaning to this. There's not some intentionality behind the intelligence of this reality, right? So that really comes forth when you're just sitting alone. You start to question, you start to come with deeper, bigger thoughts, bigger questions, rather than just, now I need to do this, now I need to. It's more deep, it's more spiritual, it's more philosophical thoughts and questions. So it can open that spirituality and deepen that if you already have that. Also, you will find that, like Jesus said, heaven is within. Not that it has to be a Christian thing or it's not a religious thing. It's just, he was a sage who said, heaven is within. And like I said earlier with the natural bliss, sitting with yourself will reveal that natural heaven. You might even realize that reality is heaven. And the only thing getting in the way of seeing that is your own thoughts and patterns and ego stories, and really just you getting in the way of that natural heaven, that natural bliss. So that's my motivation for going and trying do nothing. The challenge I would like to present is to set a timer for 3 hours, and it might sound long, but also I think if you really want to try this out, you got to do at least 3 hours, because 1 hour is just not long enough for you to go deep. 2 hours, yeah, but 3 really gets you over the edge and gets you into that blissful state towards the end. And it really just, you're not worried about the time. You're like, this is going to be 3 hours. So that's a long time. So you kind of surrender deeply into it in that sense. So yeah, my challenge is to set a timer for 3 hours, sit somewhere comfortable, somewhere you won't be distracted. There's no people around. There's nothing you have to do. Maybe in nature, but also it's fine in your apartment. Just sit comfortably. There's no rule about sitting in like a meditation position. Just be comfortable and just sit there with yourself. And whatever comes up, just kind of allow it to be there. Give it space. Work through it. Feel through it. If you get bored and you're saying this is stupid, this is dumb, remind yourself that this is something that you've never done before, and that it might be the most valuable thing you've ever done in your life, and that you're going to see it out to the end. You're going to go all the way through. no matter what your mind comes up with, because the mind is going to try to trick you and be like, this is stupid, we're wasting our time, I'm done, this is boring, this is too painful, I can't do it, all these excuses, and all you have to do is nothing. So there's not even any effort required. Not that this is easy, but it's simple. You just sit there and you do nothing, and you sit with yourself. So that's my challenge to you. Thank you for watching this video. I hope you guys liked it, and I hope you get a lot out of this. Let me know how your experiments went in the comments, and talk soon. Much love.